Hello and welcome to another episode of Exteriors by Gary Whillock. The other day I was looking at this and trying to figure out why this just doesn't seem right. And I was in that moment of duh, and I just couldn't process it. Before they installed this siding here, and you see the house wrap here done so poorly, what's the point of putting it on? If it doesn't hold water, what's the point? So this is going to come off and then the house wrap will come over. But anytime you have a lip like this, this is 1/2 inch out and then the siding drops behind it. And the caulk is going to crack here because of expansion and contraction, and it's going to crack here just because of the movement on the house and the breathing of the parts. It's inevitable. Caulking is not designed for waterproofing long term. There are several that do good short term, none that I've found long term, some better than others. I've seen the very best NP1 before they took out the ingredients that made it so good, and most people don't even know that that's made a change, but it changed, gosh, that must have been 10 years ago. And that's when we saw the price drop from $9 a tube to $4.50 a tube, and everybody was real excited about it. They didn't realize it was a different product. But what has to happen here, if you're going to have a shelf like this and a crack like this, to keep this from becoming a rotted member, and if water soaks in, gets caught in there, it will rot up so high, it won't hold the nails anymore. It just creates another mess. This needs a flashing. Now we're going to only come down over this about 1/4 inch. It'll paint. You won't even know it's there, except 10, 15 years from now, you'll know it was watertight and you won't have a problem. If you don't have it there, you will know it was missing. 10 to 15 years from now, you will have a problem. It's just the way it is. What's the purpose of house wrap? Whether it's Tyvek or whether it's an oil base or asphalt underlayment, what is the purpose of house wrap? Obviously, people in the industry across the board don't have a clue. It is the moisture barrier. Now, it's not a vapor barrier, it's breathable, but it is to keep the moisture out of the wood. Here's a question. With this setting right here, they had it caulked on the outside. Any crack in the joint right here, water would go in there and get behind here and just roll in there. What is the point of doing house wrap at all? I know some of you say, well, that's what I was getting paid for. You do not get paid for putting in time. That is the most ludicrous concept in the world. You get paid only for bringing value to the marketplace. Let me say that again. You only get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. You know, I have to laugh at the McDonald's employees striking in New York, wanting $15 an hour starting out up there instead of 7 or 8 or whatever it is. If they get that passed, may already have. The problem is this: McDonald's is at a higher rate. They can go out and hire people that provide more value. It's a starting position job, and they know that. They expect to turn over thousands and thousands and thousands. It's getting started, your first rung of the ladder. Success is not a bed. You don't lay in it. Success is a ladder. You got to climb one step at a time. This has no value. Carpenters and people wondering why they're out of work, why they always looking around for a job, why they're getting underpaid. They're not getting underpaid. They haven't earned what they're probably getting paid. When I see this kind of stuff, I just go crazy. This is a no attempt to do it right. They stuck the paper in there. The guy walked around and goes, okay, I'll pay you. Should not even get paid for that. I know that's going to create some flag. Here we are back, taking the paper off. Found this incredible goofy framework here. It's got an offset in it. Kind of rolls out there about 1/2 inch. That's terrible. But it is what it is. It does it all the way through. You can actually feel it right there. It kind of fizzles out right there. So it goes from here up through there. Not sure what they did, but that's some pretty bad framing. Now, also, What we're about to do is install a flashing over this, and then we'll take a look at that. After that, we will install paper over this. And by the way, we found out that they did not need the joint in here, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but adding the joint in here was just crazy. This is 8 feet plus a little bit up in the far corner there that is mostly going to cover with 1x4 trim piece. So to have a piece in here, it would be like cutting a fender of your car in two and then trying to piece it back together. And it has a lot to do with, you know, your perception of how well you want it built. So before you install the actual house wrap product, and we're going to use a roofing membrane for this. Is actually a synthetic roofing product, which is very similar to the house wraps. In this case, it's so small, there's really no concern for sweating or anything, and it is a breathable product. So we're going to use that because we have it readily available. It's a very small piece here. Typically, we would get a house wrap, and you know, I'm not a huge fan of them. I really believe that if you could still get it, the old asphalt is a better way to go with a 15-pound felt, not this new stuff that they call number 15. But that's a personal thing. Here you can actually see there's been a lot of rusting behind the paper that was there, but they had it put on so sloppy that could be it. What we're talking about is you want to have this flashing on because you've got to get the water off of the siding, not relying on caulk right here and over this little board here. Otherwise the water goes in like it has, and it ruined one of the boards up there, made it separate a lot. We've screwed it back together and have it usable, buildable, but there's really no excuse for that kind of thing. Now what's going to happen next is the house wrap goes on. Okay, I don't do too much of the handiwork anymore, but there it is. The siding piece is in. You can see that the beam is lower here, it's starting to stretch up there, but what they've done is covered it with a 1x, so that 1x is going to cover it up and hide most of that sin. All right, the near finished product. The painters will be here in a week or so. Do the painting, and the yellow will go away and look right with the house. Everything will be repainted the same, real close to the fascia color that's there now. Now the other day we talked about putting a flashing in here, and Steve is getting ready to install the flashing, and that requires a cut. Now this cut is at 4 inches above the roof, and that meets international code, and also looks very good. It doesn't look too small. Now it's going to be made out of the same Kynar coating that is, I think this is a Mansard brown roof. So it's going to match that. So you will just notice it as a kind of a final point to the roof. It makes it look very finished going up the wall. Does not transition into that galvanized piece or anything like that. Now he's got to make that little opening a good 1/4 inch wide. 3/8 of an inch is ideal. And that takes a little bit of grinding. We've got just a diamond blade on there, which cuts the stone real nice and clean without chipping off any big chunks, which is what we're after. But it causes you to need to move the saw around a little bit, up and down, and plane off additional rock so you get the opening wide enough. Again, you want to go wide enough so you can get a turn back, kick back, flashing in there before you put the mortar in, so any water that hits the flashing runs this way, cannot run further into the masonry. Now I really like the finish the guys did here. I'm going to see if I can capture it better than I did the other day. Real hard to capture. The lighting just keeps, there's too much lighting around. Oh, here we go. It's captured so you can see how nice that detail finishes out the roof. So it continues all the way across. Has the same 1 inch reveal to the side of it where the drip edge comes out that 1 inch. and has a very, very nice consistent look with the roof itself. Looks finished. Here you can see the amount of pollen we're dealing with. This is just 2 days worth. No, I guess this is a little more. This is about 5 days worth on this side. This is actually the starting site. So they just cannot walk on that pollen. They're trying to get it off there so they can stand on this. We've got to do the seaming of all this. So they're washing it off, and hopefully they don't get on there where it's wet. We're back over on this side. This is where I did the repair for the siding. So the trim piece on the bottom would be running water out and over that bottom piece that's on there. And then up above here, you can see they've started installing the actual ridge. And there is no vent on this because this is an insulated attic. In other words, it's part of the envelope of the house, and it's very nice and cool up there when it's hot. Now here you see the ridge is not on, but you see the Z's in place. Now the way we do these is, and the way we make them look so good is here on the end we'll add a Z, and then we hook over that with the ridge piece. So many just, in my opinion, just wad all the metal down and around the whole thing, leaving kind of a blunt thing there. Some do it straight across. None of those look very residential. Well, I'll come back and film this. I'm not sure I'll be here long enough today, but I want to capture this ends, and this is going to have a lot of them. So each one of the hips will have the same end like that. Each one of the ridges will have the same end like that. And as you saw by the earlier pictures, it's a pretty large roof with a lot of hips and a lot of ridges on it. Now, this is the area that we looked at earlier, and you remember that the shingles went underneath and then they were caulked along here. We don't like that for two reasons. Caulk trapping moisture into the hardy will eventually cause it to delaminate and start deteriorating along that area. Two is caulk will fail and water will get behind. Now what we've done here, we've been able to be consistent on every one on the house. The same. We were able to get this up high enough to get completely underneath it. This standing seam goes underneath it. In fact, is we had to carve out the soffit just a little bit to get that underneath and go through the soffit right there. And you have to do that because water can wick its way around. And depending on the wind, depending on a lot of things, water can do some crazy things. So here I am spraying that. You kind of get an idea that you got water coming from multiple directions, and you can see water wicking back underneath there and coming out all the way to there. Now the next panel over didn't have to go all the way up that far, but it actually did on this one. And then you see here a kick out, which turns the water away from the stone. And that kick out is really a critical part to get that water into the gutters that'll be installed after we're complete. But again, it doesn't just flow straight down. A lot of times the wind blows and it goes all the way up under there. And so you have to prepare for that water to not get higher than you've got panels. And so we've got a panel way up under here. It goes all the way to about right here on the underneath the soffit part. So about a foot past where you can actually see. And again, very lucky that all of these could be consistent around the house on this particular house. And there's quite a few of them.